This is September 9th, 2020, and this is UFO Mimi's second video. She did part one last October 30th, 2019, right here. And we covered Mimi's life story with her UFO abduction experiences up to age 17. So now we're going to continue from there. And she's the organizer of our Vancouver UFO meetup. So I'd like to introduce to you Mimi.
Hi everybody. First of all, I wanted to thank Brian for taking the time to do this interview with me. He's a really busy guy and he has provided this time for me, and I'm very appreciative of it. And I'm also really happy that this is the first time that the first time that we're going to have real of my content on our YouTube channel, which is pretty new. And that's called Vancouver UFO channel on YouTube. And we have a lot of things. Brian has been creating a lot of content with Jeff, as you'll see there. He has a lot of stuff about Grays, but we didn't have anything that was generated from ourselves, and this is the first one, so woohoo. I have some things there from Miles Johnson and from Carrie Cassidy from other interviews, and another interview with Brian before from his channel. So this is very first content from Vancouver UFO. I'd also like to thank all the Vancouver UFO members, which are now, we're up to 104, which is just fantastic. And if COVID ever goes away, then we will have some pretty nice meetings in person with all these people. And I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. So please subscribe, all you meetup members. Subscribe to our little YouTube channel that we're just starting, because it's yours too. Okay, so Brian, take it away.
Yeah, well, we finished off the last 2 hours we did last year. You said, well, that was up to age 15 to 17. So we were doing your life chronologically. So I guess we covered that period up to 15. And I think you just moved to New Jersey, New York area.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
And you could continue on from there, unless you want to review the big abduction.
I'd like to.
April 1968, when you were 14.
Yes. I'd like to review that a little bit at the beginning of this video for people who haven't seen that or didn't get to it, because it's a little bit further on in a long video.
Yeah.
So basically what happened to me, which is my one real abduction that I can talk about and know that it happened. I'm sure that other things have happened in my sleep and things like that, but this is a real conscious one that happened to me. I was with my friend staying for Easter holiday, staying with my friend at her house for the weekend, and her father was an army general, and they had traveled all over the world, and they were stationed in Ecuador, and they were to be there for 3 years. They had just gotten there recently. I think the kids had all started school a little bit late in the second semester, so they had really just gotten there for his 3-year stint. And my friend and I, unfortunately, we were already smokers at that age, and we decided to go out for a cigarette. Now, where we were was, I wouldn't say it was a military neighborhood, but it was where the military lived. It was called El Batan in Quito, Ecuador, and that was the section where the U.S. Army was putting all of their military. The houses themselves had walls, but it wasn't a walled-off space. You know, it wasn't like behind a wall that you had to have guards and stuff. But all the houses were there for the military, and then some Ecuadorians lived too. But all the houses were pretty much, I remember hop-skipping from yard to yard of where the military lived. So I think that they had a section in El Batan. I'd like to return there one day and find out where that section is, because I'm sure it's still the same.
Yeah, you want to go back and relive and see. I was here, and this is where it happened. You lived.
That's right. Yeah.
That would cost a few dollars, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I've been invited to come to Ecuador, but then COVID happened, and traveling is really not not really
Not easy, yeah.
easy right now. So that's being put on hold. But there is a UFO researcher there, whose name is Jaime, and he wants to follow the story up, and we would like to try to find Doris, my friend that I was there with.
So you're never allowed to speak to her, just briefly through the bushes.
So what happened was, we went out for a cigarette, we left her house, we walked about a block and a half to have our cigarette away from the house.
Bad girls, bad girls.
Yes, bad girls. And then we saw this light that we thought was the moon. And it was beautiful, and we both commented on how big and bright the moon was. And then it started coming at us. And we got really, really scared. And my first memory of this is that we saw the light, it was coming for us, at us, like such a fast pace. It started out about the size of a quarter in the sky, and then it got to the size of a regular full moon that we see, and then it was bigger. By the time we ran away, and she was saying, "Those are the aliens, and they're coming for girls that are virgins, under 15, and she was joking around, and she was 15, so she said...
a conversation about it actually may have induced them? Like, you know, people ask for it? You know,
No, I think the conversation came because she knew more about aliens than me, and as I go through this story a little bit, you'll see that I think possibly her father was involved in research down there because she knew a lot more than me. And then she said, "I'm 15, so they're gonna take you," you know, and we're running away from this thing. Now, the next memory I have of it is a beautiful green and blue spinning top, slowing down, you know, so that you see like the top was kind of a yellowy, it was exactly like a fried egg. The top was like a yellow, white little bump, and then the lines were green, a beautiful turquoise blue and a bit of a green, just spinning. And so I have these two images of what happened. Now, at the time, we thought we ran away. We didn't even think about why we had two images of the same ship. But after hearing other abduction experiences and after my own research of 50 years now researching UFOs, I realized that they had taken us, and then when we saw it slowing down, they had obviously dropped us off and they were going to leave. Right?
Wow.
So that's how I put the story together now, because I've never been able to understand why there was two. Some people say, oh, there was two because one was the aliens and one was a military abduction. I don't think that's what happened.
Doesn't make sense.
I think that they grabbed us with the big light, then we went up on the ship, and then when we were dropped off, we saw the ship that had slowed down, and we actually saw the colors. And then we ran home. When we ran home, when we left, it was 9:40 in the evening, and we were supposed to be back at the house at 10 o'clock. When we got back to the house, it was 1:20 in the morning, and we had just had one cigarette, and 3.5 hours are missing time. So that was pretty bizarre. It was really hard for us to explain or even try to explain to her family what happened. They didn't let us talk. They separated us immediately. She was sent to her room. I was sent to sit in a chair waiting for a taxi. They called my uncle where I was staying in Ecuador. My dad had sent me to live with my uncle and all of my family down there.
His brother?
Mm-hmm. And I was going to a private school because he wanted me to be fluent in Spanish and in English, so he sent me to high school in Ecuador, to a private school. So, long story short, we get separated. We're not even allowed to talk. We're not allowed to say what happened. They're assuming that we went to a party and we're coming back drunk or something. Meanwhile, we had not had anything to drink. We'd had one cigarette and got captured by aliens. So this was hard to explain. And when I got home, my uncle was really, really angry because, these were important American people, and he was a teacher at my school, and this was not cool for us to be coming back at this time of night.
Not cool at that age. Bad girls.
And the weird thing about it is that she had, I think it was two brothers were in school with me in my science classes, but there may have been an older brother, a third brother. So I know there was the dad and at least two brothers that went all over the neighborhood looking for us. They did not find us. When we got home, it was 1:20 in the morning, and they were just about ready to phone the police for missing persons. So they were really angry with us. I got home in the taxi. My uncle was pretty rough with me, and I was punished. I was grounded. And basically not able to talk, not able to say what had happened.
Well, what did you explain to them?
Nothing. They assumed what they assumed, and they blamed what they blamed, and we weren't allowed to.
Could you tell them, did you say, I didn't know what happened?
No, I didn't do that. It was basically, you went to a party, and my answer would be like, no, I didn't do that. But not, aliens came. That answer was not allowed, right?
Did you know at that point it was aliens?
I knew something weird had happened, and because my friend had said aliens take girls under 15.
But you didn't have a memory of being probed for 3 hours.
No, I didn't have a memory of that. All I had the memory of is seeing the light very fast coming towards us and running like hell.
But did you know what time it was?
We didn't know what time.
No, well, when they're giving you shit, did you know what time it was then?
When they're giving us shit, it was like 1:20 in the morning when we arrived at her house. Then a cab came to get me, so it was over after 2 in the morning.
1:20 in the morning.
After 2 in the morning when I arrived at my uncle's house, and they just assumed we went to a party.
Yeah, but my question is, you knew it was 2 in the morning.
Yes.
So did you wonder what happened to the time?
Yeah, I was absolutely confused. Right? But we were having more to defend ourselves against partying than to actually have the time to explain our confusion about the time. We were like, we didn't know the time, so they're thinking they're drunk, they're stoned, they're whatever, right?
Families are like that with teenage kids,
yes,
right?
That's right.
Doesn't matter what you say.
It was blame, 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 shut up, shut up, shut up. So now, I don't know if I did tell some of my cousins my experience. I have a feeling that I did. And one time when I was on a little interview with Jaime, who's stationed in Ecuador recently, I saw that one of my cousins had signed on. But I didn't get to talk to her, so and I know it was her. So I need to talk to her and ask her if I said at the time that we'd been abducted by aliens. But anyway, so fast forward, that was when I was 14. And then things really broke down at my uncle's house. The trust was gone. Trust was broken on both sides. And I had asked my dad if I could come back to New Jersey.
Well, you didn't trust your uncle anymore, I mean.
No, I didn't trust my uncle, and I felt that it was really unfair for me not to be able to say my piece. Like, I don't know what happened to 3 hours,
I think you're right.
And I felt that I should have the right to say that. I didn't have answers, but I had a lot of questions.
So you probably still feel that way now.
Well, yeah, I do.
I agree with you.
Yeah. I should have. They should have.
Let me phone your uncle.
Yeah, he's gone. Rest in peace. But the family tie, trust that my dad had entrusted a young woman into my uncle's, under my uncle's care, so that I could go to school in Ecuador. And my uncle felt like he had broken my father's trust. I felt like my uncle had broken my trust. And he felt like I had broken his trust because I was out gallivanting when I should have been, in bed. So I asked my parents to bring me back to New Jersey at that point. And I had a ticket to go home from Ecuador. School wasn't finished. It was only April. It was spring break. And my parents said no. But the situation was not good. It was not working well anymore after this thing happened. So I went to see the U.S. consul. And I told the U.S. consul, I don't know if I told him about the abduction. I can't remember. There's so much that has been erased. I don't know if I actually told him that, and then he stamped the visa, or if I just told him that I needed to go home.
So you're not just saying your memory's foggy, you think it was erased?
I think, well, I don't remember the general's last name, my friend Doris's last name. The only name that I have in my head is Brown, and I've looked through the yearbooks. I was going to bring the yearbooks today to show you. I've looked through the yearbooks for her twin brothers, and their last name is not Brown. There is a set of twins, twin boys, American boys, and I believe their last name is Wright. W-R-I-G-H-T.
But do you think your memory's just foggy after 52 years, or was it actually
No,
erased by
actually,
illness?
it was gone the minute that this happened. The following week, I couldn't have told you what her last name was. It was gone. Like, with the experience.
This is a close friend of yours.
Close friend.
So you obviously knew her name.
Yes.
Wow.
And her brothers and I went to school together.
Wow.
My school was the American School of Quito, and they have American School of many places. And what they do is they have half the day is in English and half the day is in Spanish. So my half of the day was in English in the afternoon, and that's when I took my science and my math, and a lot of those kinds of subjects were taken in English at my school, and that's how I had it. That, I guess I had elected to do that. But so my English classes took place with these boys who were in a full English school, because they were foreigners. They didn't have to do the Spanish. They just had an English school in Ecuador. So, but I did take science with them. We did science and calculus and chemistry and different things that, you know, are good in English. So we did that. And I have completely forgotten their name, and I've looked through the book, and the only thing that I can find is Wright. And I'm not sure if it was them. So I really need to go to Ecuador to...
But have you had this book in your possession for 52 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Actually, I had lost it, but I have my yearbook from that year. Yeah. So, but what I can't find is I can't find a correlation between those two boys and me in the school book. So I can't find the English classes or anything. So I would have to go to the school and find out what they did in that year and how they ran the thing, because they never...
You can write to them from here, right?
Yeah,
Send them some money.
I could.
Did you do microfiche film?
Yeah, I guess I could, because, you know, we obviously would have been in the same roster in certain classes, and their name would have to appear with
You could
me.
just send them some money and say, could you please do this?
I probably could.
That's a lot cheaper than flying to Ecuador.
Oh no, but it would be so much fun. You know, be so much fun. My family still lives there, and I would just love to walk around where this happened, and you know, and find out the general's name. And now my friend Doris, she went to a different school. She went to one of the Protestant schools there in English.
Were you in a Catholic school?
No, I was.
Private.
I was in a private school, and she was in a different private school, but it was Protestant. She wanted to go to that school. I don't think it was Catholic. So anyway, we only knew each other because of her brothers being in my... But we were very good friends for the time that I knew them, which wasn't long, probably 3 months. And then They got immediately transferred out of Ecuador, although they had a 3-year stint.
Whew.
So
How long were they
suddenly they were there 3 months
Whoa.
of a 3-year stint. Suddenly they're getting transferred. And my friend organized a meeting. They were having a going away barbecue, and she organized for me to meet them there at the barbecue and just talk at the gate, because her father had said never to speak to me again. And he also had said that if we ever told anybody, that people would think we were crazy. So I think she managed to tell the story to her dad. I think she did. Because otherwise, how could this be coming back to me? Never tell, right?
So you think because her dad was a military general, he knew about aliens?
I think so. He might have even been there on a secret whatever, right?
Yep.
So this is the big mystery for me. And then my friend, there at the barbecue, at the bushes in the barbecue, she made me promise that I would never tell. And I did promise. And I kept my promise.
She spoke you to the bushes. Your brothers arranged that.
Yeah. And she went to the gate, and I was at the gate, and she came outside, and there was bushes there to cover her from her family being mad that she's with me.
Just have a parting farewell doors.
Yeah, and it was really sad.
Oh.
It was really sad because she was a great girl, and I thought I would have my buddy for the entire time that I went to school there, and then they were removed, like that. 3-week notice. At the minute it happened, 3 weeks they were gone. So that's not a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the Army knew that the aliens were picking people up, and it was just unfortunate that they picked his daughter up. The other thing is that in my abduction experience, when I actually have the experience, the memory of it, she's nowhere to be seen in this experience. She's not there. And what she told me when we were running away, which must have been after, she told me, we thought we were running away, right? But when I realize now is that we were running away after they had deposited us.
And you're so freaked out, so you're running away.
So we're running away thinking it was when we saw them, but it was actually 3 hours later, 3.5 hours later. So when we're running away, she says the aliens, they're looking for virgins that are under 15.
So she must have known something.
Yeah.
That's probably true.
Right?
Her dad's not supposed to tell her that stuff.
Well, she was either joking, trying to scare me, but it did scare me.
Do you think her dad was warning her, look, there's aliens and you're a young lady and I want to protect my daughter, so
maybe,
watch where you're going. Maybe he's doing it to protect his own daughter, breaking the secrecy rules.
Yeah, I don't know. To tell you the truth, I honestly don't know, but I know that they were removed. Just like that. Gone. And that she wasn't allowed to ever speak to me again, so we never spoke again. And as I said, the last name has vanished from my memory, so I don't really know. So fast forward to me, I went back to New Jersey. The consul stamped my visa. I went back to New Jersey. Because of this situation, and you've said before, oh wow, your parents were pretty strict, and I'm a Latin American, so in those days, 50 years ago, parents were very strict. So my relationship with my own family was pretty messed up, and I spent 1 semester in Texas, in Waco, Texas, with my older brother. Because we were not getting along. When I came back to New Jersey unannounced, I just showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And
we're getting along with your family, I mean.
Yeah, and I showed up because the consul stamped my ticket and I had a ticket home.
Yeah.
So I just showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and they didn't even know I was coming.
Whoa.
They said don't come, but I came.
That's why I didn't tell them, that's why I didn't tell them.
Right. They said don't come, but the situation was very, very bad.
So
for me.
what happened when you arrived? You got to tell that story.
So when I arrived at LaGuardia Airport, I phoned my best friend, and her father was just a lovely man, and they were Cubans, and he was an accountant and a really wonderful person. And I said, "Can you please get your dad to take me home?" And she's like, "What are you doing? Where are you?" "I'm at LaGuardia. I came home. I
I
didn't
guess
like
you didn't want to phone them in advance because they might have told your parents.
That's right.
You're smart.
I phoned from LaGuardia. And so her dad's name was Candido. He's also passed away now, so rest in peace, Candido. He came to the airport, and of course he gave me the 1, 2, 3 all the way from the airport to my house. And he brought me to my house and knocked on the door, and guess who's here? You know, oh my God. So
3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock in the morning, I arrived back home. But you know, you have to realize the trauma of this, even though at that time I didn't know that I'd been taken. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, you did.
Right?
No.
I didn't. My friend said that as a joke. Maybe she knew about it, but I didn't know about it.
So you didn't believe it after the fact. You didn't know about it, yeah. Where'd you get the money to fly home?
My father had given me a return ticket when he bought me my ticket to go to Ecuador. So I had a return ticket. What I didn't have is a visa. My visa had expired because I'd been going to school for 2 years in Ecuador. And the visa's only good for a year. So I
You
needed
tell
a
the
visa.
audience, what do you need a visa for to get back to your home country?
Because
mean,
I'm
you weren't American?
South American. I'm not American. So I needed a visa to get back into the United States.
You want to tell the audience what country you're born in?
I was born in Uruguay. And at that time, I had a Uruguayan passport.
Oh,
But
living
now
in
I'm
Ecuador.
Canadian. I'm only Canadian, not Uruguayan anymore.
Okay, you can stay in my apartment then.
Yeah, but yeah, that's how it was. I needed a Uruguayan citizen needed a visa to enter the United States from Ecuador. So the consul stamped my passport. I had my ticket and I got on board.
So then you're home, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and my
So-
parents are freaking
So
out.
you're still, I guess, about 15 at this point.
No, I'm
Oh,
still 14.
14, okay.
Because I went right away. I left almost as quickly as they did, you know. The situation was not good. I was grounded, really badly grounded. I couldn't go out, do anything, nothing.
That's really strict for a girl to go
Very
south.
strict. And it was very strict in Ecuador anyway at that time. You know, lots of gates in the houses and lock at night, lock the gate. You know, very colonial actually at that point, still, almost like Victorian. Not anymore. You know, now Ecuador is a very free, open country, but in those days it was very traditional. So, I mean, this is 50 years ago. So, 53 years ago now. So, anyway, got home, you know, relationship with parents wasn't good. I got to school and I got left back a year because I came back in April and I didn't finish that year. So then the next year I was supposed to go back into grade 10. And it was just like, and so I couldn't move forward with my own friends that I'd grown up with in New Jersey. And so, you know, there were a lot of problems. And my parents sent me to Texas for a while in grade 10 to alleviate the situation somewhat. And then I came home after that, you know, but things didn't continue very well. So anyway, fast forward to age 17, I meet a Canadian boy. We decide to get married and I come to Canada. Parents have to give me permission to get married. I've totally decided to get married to him and to do school here and blah blah blah. And so I came when I was 17 and I went to UBC.
So you came to Vancouver.
I came to Vancouver.
And where was your family at that point?
My family went back to Ecuador.
Wow.
They were living in New Jersey, but
So you're with your husband?
So I'm with my husband. I'm in Vancouver. I don't know a soul other than him. And you know, one of the things about him is that one of the things that brought us together when we met in New York is that he had had a lot of UFO experiences, seeing them. And he was a very spiritual guy, and he had lived in ashrams in India. He had lived in ashrams in Japan. He was very, very into meditation and vegetarianism, and I learned a lot from him. He was older. He was 4 years older than me. And so we came to Vancouver, and, you know, my parents gave me permission to get married. They had to, because I was in a different country, and that was the only way for me to be able to stay here. And so we got married. I was very young.
17.
17, yeah.
1970 approximately?
Yeah. And so we got married. We had parental permission to get married. And then we continued to search for things that made sense to us, right?
You told him about your abduction?
I told him about my abduction, and he...
Because you didn't call it an abduction, you didn't know what it was. You didn't call it an abduction, did you?
I told him about my UFO experience.
Yeah.
Right? And so he wanted to help me to figure it out, because I lived in a state of confusion about it. And so we went to the planetarium here in Vancouver, and we met a group called the A&O Foundation.
A&O, what does that mean?
Alpha and Omega Foundation.
Alpha and Omega?
And they had a thing at the planetarium. They had a talk, very good talk in the auditorium there, and they showed a lot of UFOs, and they were getting people to join them, and, you know...
So what year was that?
1970.
Wow.
1970. And so we joined the group. My husband and I joined the group. And all in an effort to figure out what had happened to me, and for him to get some answers about all the UFO sightings he had seen in his life too. The funny thing about my relationship with Bob is that I met him in New York. I was living in a commune in New York, Earth People's Park. And we did a lot of community work for people, and we fed the hungry, and we did a lot of really, really good work.
Oh.
And we were close to the Bowery, and we fed the people in the Bowery. We gave people a place to sleep in our dance studio, and like a warm place, you know, kind of thing. And one of the people in the commune found this guy on the street, and he had just been robbed. He had his passport and all his traveler's checks and all his money had been robbed by someone in New York City. And he had no money to go stay anywhere and nowhere to go. So they brought him to the house, and the only bed that was available in our house was the top bunk of the room that I lived in. So they put him in the top bunk, and in the morning I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, it was this, you know. So that's how we met. This guy that was up in the top bunk, he told me his story. Yeah, he told me his story, and we got along like a house on fire. It was just great. And we ended up having a relationship. He became my boyfriend, and he stayed in New York while all this stuff was happening, but he was supposed to be on his way to Japan. But I was still underage, so I couldn't go with him.
Was 18 the age?
I was 17.
Yeah, so 18 is the age of majority at the time,
Yeah.
or 19, I think it's
Yeah,
19.
I think for travel, yeah. So I couldn't go with him. So he decided not to go back to Japan, to the ashram.
Because of love?
Because of love. And we stayed together at the commune. We lived there for about a year. And actually, at one point, I lost a baby, which I've always wondered about because people say that, you know, the aliens take a baby. But
This question there, was it at 3 months?
it wasn't. I don't think it was at 3 months. It was very early.
Like 1 month or something?
Yeah, it was very early.
But it could have been an alien thing. Who
It
knows?
could have been. I don't know. I don't know because my relationship with him was so magical. Like, what are the chances of some guy that gets put in the top bunk of your room, to be like your soulmate, and when
I think law of karma, that kind of thing.
when I
does
was
that,
with
but-
him, when I was with him, it really felt like he was my soulmate, very much so. And anyway, so then, a year passed and we decided to get married. And we asked my parents for permission to get married, and we came to Canada. And this is where we met the UFO people, the Order of Melchizedek, ANO Foundation people. And so that was a really bad experience. I think I talked about it a little bit in other videos. So I don't really want to beleaguer that. But it was a 70s cult, and basically they took everything from people.
Yeah, you talked about it in our first video, right?
They took everything from us. They took our van, they took our furniture, they took our money. They broke us apart. So he was living in a man's house, and I was living in a woman's house. And the marriage got destroyed.
All this in Vancouver.
All of that in
But
Vancouver.
it's fascinating UFO history, isn't it?
Between 1971 and 1972, all of that happened, and then we broke up, and I ended up and in 72 I ended up going to UBC and just trying to pick up my life and make a life in Canada, because before that he was my life.
But was there any UFO history you learned from this cult? Was there anything related to ufology they want to share about the cult?
Well, yeah, he was, I think he was the original person who would be the CE5 people, like how people do that, calling on ships. He, the leader of the cult.
Do you want to say his name?
His name was David Livingston.
Canadian? Canadian?
I think he was American, and his wife was called Winifred Livingston. And actually, early on in probably 1970 or 1971, Drumvello Melchizedek trained with them as well. So he was a student back then. And I think I remember Drumvello coming up here from California at one point. And he actually moved to BC, and he did all of his sacred geometry stuff in BC. I think he was still a student of David's. But
That's kind of relevant to UFO history in your life for the audience, and I think it's relevant.
yeah, well, they were, that group believed that they were descendants of Andromedans, and they believed in the event where everyone was gonna be taken off planet in ships, and they did believe in that very much.
50 years later. 50 years later.
Yeah, I never really believed in the Andromedans. I've read the Book of Urantia, and I've done, I read a lot in those days about this kind of stuff, and it never really clicked with me as being a descendant of these people. But later, much later, when I did my regressions about my own abduction, then I found out that my affiliation was with Martians, not with Andromedans. So it makes sense that the group didn't really fit me, because they just had a completely different take on things. And they, well, one of the things that they believe is that we were all going to be picked up on ships and taken when it's the end of the world and all that. And I've never believed that.
But that's a very common idea.
It's common. Yes, it is common.
And so probably perhaps easy to sell to people too.
Yes. When you see a dying world and people want answers and they want
Join
a
my
hero.
cult, give me money. Join my cult, give me money.
And he got so much money. He got so much money.
Mimi, we're doing something wrong with the Vancouver UFO meetup. We're still paying our bills, right?
We're still paying our bills. Yeah. Well, anyway, this cult, it lasted for a while, you know, and his trick was to get everybody who was working off work, to get them on welfare and selling flowers downtown. And so he collected all the welfare checks, and he was living the high life in him and his wife and the inner circle of this group. We're living the high life in Shaughnessy, 18-bedroom house, you know, like just really the high life. And everybody else, all the kids, all the people, I worked really hard. I worked in a craft center, teaching people how to make things in leather, and I'm a craftsperson, so I'm an artist and artisan, and I always was. From very little, my mom started teaching me different crafts when I was very little, and so that was my job there, so I didn't have to go out and sell flowers. I ran the center.
Amazing, these cults. I've never been in a cult in my life. It was fascinating.
And so, but yeah, that's what he did, and he separated the women and the men into separate houses, and so, you know, any married people like we were instantly broken up because, you know, they weren't even living together.
The audience is going to ask, was there sexual misconduct on his part with the women?
Well, the reason that I left the group is because he tried to hook me up with one of his special inner circle people.
Even though I knew you were married.
Even though I was married, and I was very much in love with my husband.
How did he feel about your husband?
He felt that my husband had married the wrong woman. The way that they had it was through astrology, and you had to be next to the person that was your soulmate. So in my case, I'm a Gemini, and so my soulmate would have been a Taurus, but my husband was an Aries.
Oh, so he'll just decide that for you then.
So exactly, yeah, you know, and so my husband's real soulmate would have been a Pisces. So they split us up, and I was never happy about it, ever.
Did you hook up with the other guy?
No, absolutely not. In fact, when they tried to get me into the house when I knew that they were going to try to get me into the house in Shaughnessy, I picked up a few things from my house and I ran away from the group. And I went to stay with a woman that had left the group.
So that was the end of your...
That was the end of my thing there. But
this is part of the UFO lore history of Vancouver, I guess.
Yeah,
Now,
well,
was this called only in Vancouver and nowhere else?
Okay, we had a place, the A&O Foundation, his house, actually, where he gave classes, was on Knight Street and like where Knight and 33rd meet, like Knight and 28th or so, around there. And there was a balcony at the back, and he would call them at will. He would say, "We're having a meeting tonight, everybody come." We would come, we have a meal, and then at the end of the meal, you know, maybe he put acid in the meal, I don't know, but we would go to the balcony and he would call them and they would come.
Well, where were they when he called them?
In the sky. I mean, they would appear.
What would appear?
Right? The UFOs would come.
You're saying this guy had the ability to call UFOs?
Yes, and I would say that he was a very strong magical person.
So you're saying
black magician.
You're saying he was really authentic. A few minutes ago, I thought he was just a cult leader making money.
No. He was authentic. He was He had been trained in India. He was a much older man than we were. He was probably 58 or 59 when I was 17.
Hey, I resemble that remark. I'm 60.
And I was 17 when I joined the order. So he had had years and years of meditation training, yogi training, and he was what I would say a fakir.
What's
a
that?
fakir, where he knew how to do, you get to a certain level in yogi, in yogi ascension, where you can do magic. You can demonstrate spiritual gifts. Those are fakirs. They can make fire come out of their hands. They can, they can move objects. Lots of things.
This is an American.
You know.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
So,
you know what a fakir is.
Yeah, but do you want to tell us what exactly he could do? And what did he did you see them yourself?
So one of the things that really convinced us, Bob and me, his name was Bob, my husband, to join the group, is that when we went to one of his translation meetings, he had this trick where he would have you close your eyes and hold a rock in your hands. Or he would hold a rock in his hands. You would close your eyes, and then he would hand you the rock, and the rock would get hotter, hotter, hotter in your hands until you had to give it back because it was burning. So he had tricks that he did.
But if you gave it back, wouldn't it burn his hand?
Well, that's the whole thing. He was making them hot, giving them to you, and then they kept getting hot in your own hands. So he had a few tricks that really convinced people.
Are you saying it would not burn his hand, but it would burn your hand?
He would make a cold rock hot in his hand.
No, but when you handed it back, did it not burn his hand?
No.
Because he was a fakir.
Because he was a fakir,
How do you spell that?
Fakir. I believe it's Faquir, fakir, or Fauquer.
Did you actually see the UFOs yourself when he called them?
Yes.
What did they look like?
The UFOs were tiny specks in the sky, but they would move for us. They would come. It would be like seeing stars far away, and then he would call them and they would come.
Is this daylight?
Evening after dinner.
Wow, so
Right.
do you think they could be like Deva spirits rather than spaceships?
I don't know. His whole thing was a UFO based.
But what you know.
The ANO Foundation was the foundation that he set up in order to be able to canvass and collect money for the group.
Did he tell you what type of view it was?
No. But everybody who was in the group had experiences like me, like Bob. Everybody who was interested in that group and joined the group had already had UFO experiences, and that's why we were there. We wanted to learn more.
It's amazing, but from what you know now, you realize there's two major theses in ufology. Some are spaceships and some are actually angels, devas, orbs, lights, non-physical. So in your opinion, what was it?
I would have to say that they were UFOs.
No, that doesn't answer the question. They're both UFOs. Which one was it?
I don't know. But I found out later, when I left the order, that this man was left-hand path all the way.
Okay, so when you say lights, you say it could be an orb or it could be a physical object, and today, 50 years later, you're saying you don't know. You have no idea.
Let's say that you're looking at stars in the sky, okay? And the stars are solid, they're twinkling, and they don't move around.
Yeah.
He does his prayer, he gets us to do a meditation and a prayer with him, and all of a sudden, there's fleets of stars and things that are moving around. They're going, none of them came close. So I can't tell you what kind of aliens they were.
But I'm thinking the recent video we saw, like Jeff, for instance, we saw his video, he saw some lights moving around, he filmed it, we got a recent video. Was it something like that? To me, that is something which could be...
Actually,
deva. It could be a deva. It doesn't
It
have to
could
be
be.
a
I don't
flying
know.
saucer with metal ding ding.
I don't know, right? His background was yogi.
Well, that indicates even more likely it's an orb and not something physical.
Well,
If he conjures it up,
okay,
like,
he was conjuring it up,
it sounds like a spirit, though.
and I now, as I'm older, 50 years later, I realized that he was using our energy to do these conjurings.
Yeah.
I also found out when I left the order a year and a half after I was in it that he was a black magician, and he was left-hand path all the way, very much so.
See, I wasn't there, but
And
right away
people
I'm
have
saying
said-
I'm saying it's more of a being than a physical thing. That's my conclusion.
People have said to me, including Carrie Cassidy, has said to me that the whole Merkaba teaching that came from that group is inverted.